Hey there everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist and welcome back to my channel. Those of you here for the first time, welcome. My name is Kat Bowser. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also a writer working on my first two novels, one a standalone, one the start of a series. And on my channel, I like to talk about what I consider to be the heart of writing, and that's the characters. And the heart of the characters is their psychology. So that's the angle I like to take with most of the things I talk about on my channel. So today I am continuing what I have been calling the Week of the Storm, which is basically me celebrating the release of one of my friend Marion Blackwood's third novel. It comes out next Monday. So I had decided that this week I wanted to dedicate my videos to her series, the Oncoming Storm series, because I think it's amazing and I think more people need to know about it. So for today's video, I wanted to talk about her world building and how more people should learn from it. So I know when most people hear the word world building, even if they like fantasy, it usually gets this response. Oh, because it can be done wrong and it can be done excessively. But I don't think she does that. And I think the way that she builds her world feels what I will call very organic, in that it doesn't feel forced. It feels like it flows with the plot. And I would consider her stories to be, I'll call it that sweet spot where if you're into world building, you get a lot of information that is so much fun to dig your teeth into. If you're not into world building and you're more focused on plot and characters, you get enough of it to enhance the characters but not pull away from them. So how exactly do you do both at the same time? Well, I think there's a couple of things here. First and foremost, atmosphere. This is something I've brought up in a couple of my videos in the past, in that I think one of the things that gets overlooked far too often in writing is the atmosphere, or to be more specific, setting an atmosphere. And if you really boil it down to its bare bones, atmosphere is the feeling that you get from a certain scene. And there are certain places in your world that generate specific feeling. And it can either be the feeling of the place you're in or the lack of a feeling of a place that you're in that really adds more flavor and more realism to your world. Like, for instance, most people have a place where they feel safe, where they feel welcomed, where they don't have to worry about too much. Most people have a place that they are uncomfortable with, that they will only stay there as long as they have to, essentially. And Marion sets this up really well. As with the rest of my videos, I'm not going to give you guys any spoilers, so I'm just going to talk in vague terms here. But one of the places that shows up a lot in her novels thus far is a very popular tavern the main character Storm goes to quite often to get information, to have a drink, to just chill with the people that she's close to. And the atmosphere of this tavern is very interesting because you get the overall feeling of this is where kind of the underdogs of the city come here and they hang out here and they get information here. This is where they do a lot of their, their trading back and forth. But there's also essentially a keeper of the tavern who they just call Bones. And she establishes this relationship between Bones and Storm and the other characters that is really just given in just very simple exchanges. The way they talk to each other, what they talk about, what they're comfortable talking about, what they don't mention out of respect, and henceforth. And that relationship really adds a flavor to this tavern because you associate the tavern with this individual. And so that creates this sense of, here is a place where Storm can kind of go and for the most part feel okay. Not necessarily safe, but safer than most of the rest of the place. She also does a very good job of what I like to call establishing space. And what I mean by that is you can tell when a character's in a place where there's lots of openings, where there's lots of fresh air, there's room to move. You can also tell when a character's in a place that feels very tight and very condensed. And because Storm is a thief, she goes to all kinds of different places. And so we get to see her in a variety of these different locations. And in some locations, we get a sense of she's not comfortable because she doesn't have escape route. She doesn't have room to draw her weapons. But in other places that she knows, where she knows inside and out, we get this sense of, even if to other people this would feel dangerous and uneasy, she's at ease because she knows what she's doing. That sets an atmosphere. The other thing that I think is very important, and I wish more writers would do this, is the idea of an unreliable narrator. And by that, I don't necessarily just mean like the narrator of the story, although in first person that could definitely apply. But I'm talking about when your characters talk to other people and they get information from other people. Most of the time, in most of the stories that I read, the information they get is accurate. You know, it's true, it's used to pull the plot along, which is fine. But by adding in a little unreliability, you really strengthen the idea of your world, because think about it for a second. How much information do you get from either family, friends, etc., that isn't always 100% accurate? And I really just think that adds another level of just this sense of feeling lived in to this world, in that these characters don't always get the right information. Sometimes they get the right information by accident. Sometimes they get the wrong information, not on purpose. And I really like how that can delve into the plot. And I like how she treats it as, this is just something that naturally happens. This isn't something that someone is necessarily doing by malice or anything like that. It's just something that happens by nature of human beings, and I really like that. The other thing she does is she tosses in little stories of like a myth about elves or about the forest or things like that. And she doesn't sit you down and say, okay, we're going to tell this story about these elves and whatnot. She drops it in little lines here and there. And that's really how people talk about these things. So there's references to things that we don't fully get, but I think it's done well because the way she does it is the way that we would really talk to people that live in the same place we do. You wouldn't feel the need to lay out an entire myth or story because everybody knows this story already. So you would just give little bits and pieces to what you're referencing. And I just love how that is done so darn well. The other thing is her world building follows the characters. And I think that is probably the best way to world build in any novel, regardless of genre. Because it's very easy to fall into a black hole of world building. But if you take the time to figure out, okay, what does my character or the characters in this scene absolutely need to know, and focus on that, it makes it so much easier. So I mean, for example, you could figure out all the dynamics of like the sewer system in your world and, you know, where it goes, where it comes from, that kind of thing. But unless it's relevant to your character, why put it in there? I mean, that's a genuine question. Now, it's a little little different if you're going to reference it later, but then you can drop little hints like we kind of talked about with the myths. But unless it is relevant to your character, then you don't really need to delve into it. Like, one of my favorite parts of the first book is we learn about the politics and the ruling of this world through Storm only when it's important for her to get involved in it. And honestly, it really reminded me of that line in Guardians of the Galaxy, where Rocket Raccoon asks Star-Lord, why is he so concerned about the galaxy? And he responds, because I am one of the idiots that lives in it. And that's kind of Storm's approach, is she's not interested in politics. She's not interested in all the goings on of the upper class, of the upper crust. She just needs to know what she needs to know to live her life and stay safe and keep the people she cares about safe. That's all that she cares about. So when the politics start to potentially invade that, then she gets involved. And so we learn in pieces as she learns. And that's a really smart approach. Now, naturally, I could go on about this world building for a while because there are 3 books. Third book's coming out on Monday, and then a 4th one in October. But I won't tell you guys explicit details because I want you guys to discover this for yourself. I've given you a couple of examples that I hope have whetted your interest a little bit, and so I hope you will go check this series out. I have linked to Marion's information in the description below, as well as where you can buy the first 2 books and pre-order the 3rd and 4th if you are so inclined. I strongly encourage you to do so. And if you guys have any comments, suggestions, leave them below. I'll get to them as soon as I can. But I hope you guys found this interesting because I always love world building. I think it really just adds to a book's world and makes it feel more real, more quote unquote lived in, more realistic. And so I enjoy it when authors do it very well. So having that being said, if you guys don't want to miss when I upload, make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so that you don't. This week I'm giving you guys a video every week in celebration of Marion's books coming out. Next week I'll go back to my regular schedule, which is one at the beginning of the week, one at the end of the week. If you guys have anything you want me to cover or talk about, be sure to let me know and I'll get to you as soon as I can. And until next time, have a good one.